Hi guys, today we're going to spend a little bit of time with the 6 times tables. Now I've written them out here already so you can start to see some of the patterns that are emerging. As always with any of the times tables, the first thing that you should probably put into your head is memorizing them. So let's have a look at the numbers that we've got when we write the 6 times tables out all together. So 1 times 6 is 6, 2 6s are 12, 3 6s 18. 4 of them 24, 5 times 6 30, 6 times 6 36, then 42, 48, 54, 60, 66, 72. Now, you'll have noticed that some of these times tables appear in ones that you've done already. If you've done 2s, 5s and 10s, you'll have seen this one already, double 6. You know that one of anything is the same number, so those two you can pretty much say you know already. You know 5 times 6 is 30 from 6 times 5. You know that one already. You may have done double the doubles, so 4 times 6 is 24. That's probably one that's fairly familiar with you. You might have done 3 times 6. You might have said, well, double 6 is 12 plus another 6 is 18. So that one's probably one that we could practice. If you've done it 3 times recently though, you'll know it. 6 times 6 is 36. It's good to know the squares of the numbers. So 6 times 6, that's one we can practice. 7 times 6 catches people out. It's one that people find tricky for some reason, along with 8 times 6 is 48. So definitely practice. 7 times 6 is 42. And 6 times 8, or 8 times 6 is 48. This one's lovely though. We can use it as a rhyming one. Often in class we talk about 6 times 8 is 48, and if you do that in your head, you'll remember it really, really quickly. 9 times 6 is 54, and the way to use that is really using your 9 times table. We know that all of the numbers in the 9 times table, the 2 digits add up to 9 or 18 or a multiple of 9. In this case, 5 and 4 comes to 9, so we know that it's in the 9 times table. Still worth practicing in your memory, but there is a bit of a trick to that one, if you can remember your 9 times table, or a trick for the 9 times table. 10 times 6 is a bit like 1 times 6, except it's 10 times more, so we don't need to memorize this one. 11 times 6, actually also easy, because any number up to 9 times 11 is just the same digit over and over. So, or 2 times over anyway, so 66, that's easy to remember. And 12 times 6 seems hard, but if you split your 12 into 10 and 2, those are both numbers that you know. You know 10 times 6 is 60. You know double 6 is 12. 60 plus 12 is 72. So even though it looks hard, that's probably one that you can remember pretty well. So, like a lot of these things, there's tricks for remembering them, and there's also possibly a song you could find online. A lot of my kids find that a tremendously useful way of learning their times tables. If you've got a little tune that you can go with it, makes it so much easier. You can hum away to yourself. So that is the first tip for the 6 times tables, is look for the patterns, look for the tricks. Every 6 times table number ends in an even number, like 2s and 4s and 8s. 6 is the same. There are no odd numbers in the ones column. So you'll notice this pattern. 6 2 8 4 0, 6 2 8 4 0. That just continues on and on because you're skipping up, counting in 6s. First tip done. Let's have a look at the next one. Just give me a moment to clear the board. What happens if you come across one that you can't remember? Now, earlier on I said to you 6 times 7 is a really good one to memorize because for some reason people find it tricky. I understand. Sometimes numbers are like that. The answer is 42, by the way, just in case you were puzzling over it. But what if you're really stuck? You don't have a calculator nearby, there's no teacher to ask. how do I figure out 6 times 7 by myself? Well, here's my little tip for this. If you know that 6 is made up of 5 plus 1, suddenly it becomes a bit easier. We can add these two multiplication products together. So 5 times 7 we know is 35 from our 5 times table. We know 1 times 7 is 7. You don't need to write all this out, by the way, so we can just add another 7 on there. If you're into doing it the traditional way, you could do it like that, or you could just go across like that, either way. Then that's pretty easy. I can figure that out. I can split this into 5 and 2 if I wanted, and just say 35 plus 7 gives me 42. So that's a really handy way of getting yourself out of a pickle. If you just can't remember, do your 5s and then do one more of the one that you're multiplying it by. Let's try another one just so you get the idea. This time 6 times 8. Now hopefully in your head right now you'll be hearing 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 8 is 48. But if for some reason that's fallen out of your head, don't panic. We know that 5 times 8 is 40. We know 5 times table. Then we just add another 8 on, because that's the one that was missing when we split the 6 into 5 and 1. 6 times 8, 48. We can confirm it, can't we? By splitting the 6 into 5 plus another 1. This also works for the 7 times table by splitting it into 5 and a double, but we'll get into that in another video. We're talking mainly about our 6s here. So that's a handy dandy little trick you can use if you get stuck with your 6 times table. What if you get one that's just a little bit trickier? Well, in the same way that you might tackle 6 times 12, you can tackle 6 times 16 or any number like that pretty easily. So instead of splitting the 6 in this case, because hopefully your 6 times table is pretty solid by now, we can split this number. We know that 16 is also 10 plus 6. So what are we doing here? Well, we know 6 times 6 is 36. We know 6 times 10 is 60. We can add those two together really quickly. 60 is easy to add on. I can just add my 10s there, and I can get 96 pretty quickly. It's not a complicated way to do it. All I've done is split 16 into 10 and 6, figured out what those basic facts are, and just glued them together to get my result here. It works with other numbers too. I'll show you that in a second. What if it's a wee bit more nasty? Well, we can still use the same strategy of splitting this number into numbers that we know. Now, we may not be able to figure out 6 times 20 straight away, but it is easy. If you know what 6 times 2 is, which of course is 12, it's just 10 times more. So 6 times 20 is 120. 6 times 8, hopefully you remember the rhyme by now. 6 times 8 is 48. It becomes 120 plus 48. Actually pretty easy maths, because all I have to do is add the 10s there really. It's going to be 168. Not a bad little trick. Splitting. What if the number is much larger, say like 357? Well, again, we're still splitting things up. We can use a strategy, an algorithm, or a standard form that we can split these into individual things and work with the products one by one. So we know 6 times 7 is 42. So here's where the trick is. You've got to know where to put the numbers. So from the 42, you put the 2 into the ones column, and the 4 into the tens column. You know how it works. You've got hundreds and tens and ones there, right? Here's the trick though. Only add that once you've multiplied these two. We know 6 times 5 is 30. We add that to get 34. And 4 goes down with these other tens here because it's 4 tens, right? And the 30, 30 tens, or 300, goes up here. Again, we wait to add that on afterwards. We know 6 times 3 is 18, in this case it's 1800s, but we're going to add 300 onto that as well. In this case it'll be 2100s, or a total of 2142. What happens if you get a really, really awkward number like this? It is 300.89 times 6. Well, if you use the same strategy of splitting them up one by one and taking your time, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, some people get tricked when they see 2 zeros. They go, oh no, what do I do with that? There's nothing to borrow from, or nothing to add on to. Don't worry about zeros. When you see them in numbers, there's always a way through. In this case, we're going to be multiplying this. We can estimate, can't we? We know 3 times 6 is 18, so the number is going to be 1800 and something, isn't it? So if we're in that, if we end up with that, we know we're in the ballpark. But let's take it step by step. 6 by 9. Well, we know it is 54. It's in the 9 times table as well. So 54. In this case, it's hundredths. So we put our, oops, excuse me, drop the pen. That's what happens when you're rushing. Put the 4 hundredths down there, and 5 tenths up here with the other tenths. 6 times 8 is 48. 48 plus 5 gives us 53 hundredths. 53 tenths, sorry, which of course gives us a bit over here, or gives us 5 ones actually. Then 6 times 0 is 0 plus 5. Now, don't forget Dennis the decimal. He goes down there straight away. Otherwise, we'll end up with the right numbers but in the wrong place value. 6 times 0, 0. Not hard at all. Then finally, 6 times 3 is 18, in this case 18 hundredths, or 1805.34. So it's time to have a go for yourself. We've only multiplied by a single 6 in each of these cases, but have a go, see what you come up with. Pause it here, come back in a second, see what you come up with. Okay, hopefully you had enough time to have a go at a few of these ones. 6 times 2 gives you 12. Carry the 10 up to the tens. 6 times 3, 3 tens in this case. 3 is 18 plus the 1 should give you 192. Then this fella here, 6 times 6 is 36. 6, carry the 3 up to the tens. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 3, 51. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11. Interesting number there, 1116. This guy here, a bit bigger. 6 times 5 is 30. Put the 0 there, carry the 3 up. So add on later. 6 times 5 is 30 again, 33. Don't need that 0 there, but it's a handy placeholder. Okay, so we had 53. Yep. Then 6 times 3, 18, plus 3, 21. carry that up into the tens. Then 6 times 7 is 42. 42 plus 2 is 44. 6 times 4 is 24. Plus 4, 28. More complicated answer this time, but the answer 2,841.3. Okay, a couple of different ones here where we're multiplying by 60 and 66. See if you remember how to do it. It is still splitting it up, but it's just a little bit trickier because you've got to make sure your place value is right. This one you're going to need to add two answers together. I'll leave it with you for a second. Pause it if you need to keep it there. I'll come back and we'll go through it together. Okay. 0 is our key here. All we need to do is remember that whatever answer we end up with, we're going to be multiplying the whole lot by 10. So we might as well pop a 0 there to start with. 6 times 7 is 42. 2 goes there, 4 goes there. It's just bumped across. Normally it would go there, obviously, but we're talking about a number that's 10 times bigger. And we've already done our first calculation. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 plus 4, 34. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 9. Plus 3 is 9. Sorry, jumping ahead of myself there. My answer there, 9,420. Big number straight away because it's multiplied by 60. It's going to be big, isn't it? Then this fella here. Well, the good news is we only have to do the maths once because we're still, while we're multiplying by 66, we only have to figure out this whole thing once. So 6 times 8 is 48. Carry the 4 over to there. 6 times 6 is 36. Plus 4 is 40. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 4 is 16. 1608 for that first row. Then, because we're multiplying by 60, pop the 0 there and just copy out the whole number again. So you're going to end up with 8 ones, 8 tens, 6 hundreds, 7 thousands, and 1 10,000. Complete answer, 17,688. Kind of fun. It's kind of like a puzzle once you get into it. Once you've got the strategies of splitting things up, all of a sudden, even complicated things like this seem really easy. And that's the whole trick with maths, taking a big problem and splitting it into smaller chunks. Well, I hope you had fun. Try a few for yourself. Challenge yourself. Throw in decimals. See what happens.